Oh, I remember challenges every step of the way. from starting the organization and, for the first time being an executive director and not really sure what that role was and going to seminars to find out. And, but I think the first real big challenge was the civil unrest. And knowing that, in 3 days, watching the violence that took place, and then knowing that people in the community were going to look to me and other folks to resolve some of the problems, and feeling overwhelmed by it. Knowing that we were going to have to launch a campaign around the liquor stores and not knowing exactly how to do that. And then I think one of the things that hopefully people learn at Community Coalition is being comfortable with not knowing and moving forward. Well, like you said when you guys did the building.
Yeah.
You figure it out along the way, and being comfortable with that, and also being comfortable with sometimes failing, and understanding that so long as you don't hurt people,
Right.
in the process, right? But you keep going, because it's not about your own personal ego. It's really about the change that you're trying to bring about.
The big challenge that I remember was the economic meltdown and that impacting the organization. Before we had done the building, we actually had to do furloughs, which was really freaked me out. I think the leadership of the organization, starting with me, we furloughed ourselves for 1 day a week for a few months. Yeah, we did for a few months. That prevented us from having to lay people off or lower people's salaries and stuff. And so we did that, but I felt like that experience really grew us up, because we came out of that, and for some reason we were like, okay, let's buy the building and now let's renovate the building, and let's make sure we have a reserve after all of that's done. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of. When I left the coalition, I don't check back, but when I left the coalition, there was enough money to survive for half a year, because I remember that being one of the goals of the organization when I started there. But that was very, very important, because that was the most concerned I've been about the organization, because I thought if this doesn't let up, we might have to permanently downsize the organization, and we didn't have any, we didn't know how we were going to come out of it.
And usually the positions that are terminated first are admin, and we had some of the strongest people in admin,
drivers,
and so we were drivers, and we were like, oh no, they cannot go. We can, we'll take furloughs, and so we did,
and we actually, the board required us to apply for and get a line of credit. Which we got, but we never used.
So the vetting process, well, it was a very interesting journey. It was a journey through my past that I really couldn't have done without Marquise. I mean, because he was there every step of the way. And when you go into a process like that, it's really important to have somebody with you that you trust. And so Marquise, there were a couple of other people also, but in terms of knowing me the longest and knowing who I am, going through that process, you have to open yourself up for scrutiny and attacks, but that's going to happen. And so, you have to have your big kid's pants on, or however that expression goes. But it was an incredible honor, but it was also very surreal. So it was I'd wake up in the morning going,
yeah, me too.
Talking about me being the Vice President of the United States. And I had to just kind of accept it, because it was beyond my, thinking. But it was just an incredible honor, and I felt really proud that I would be considered. And then one of the best parts of it, though, was that it allowed Community Coalition to be lifted up, because everybody wanted to know my past and what my journey was. And since that was such a key part of my life, it allowed me to take every opportunity I could to toot Community Coalition's horn to talk about, the work. So it was very exciting. What I didn't have a sense of at all was how it impacted you guys. I mean, I had no idea. I did, because most of the time I was in Washington, D.C. So how much attention it was given here, what was covered here, all of those kind of things I really didn't have any sense of at all. So I was just hoping that it didn't have a damaging effect.
No, no damaging effect. The opposite. We received so much attention, and the recent, it resonated with me so much is because the attention was about community transformation and what community organizing has meant for a community like South Los Angeles. All of a sudden you have South Los Angeles being discussed on, you know, major networks, MSNBC, and talking about the Rebuild campaign. And the most important part was that they were saying residents are leading in the change efforts. And, you know, in the media, I just didn't feel like that consistently takes hold. The story of community organizing. So that's what we experienced in LA. I don't know, Marquise, you were here and seen some of the coverage as well.
Well, you know, the coverage was great. I thought the organization and all of us involved, you know, benefited from it mightily. I mean, there's almost no replacement for it. You know, during the process, I have to say, you know, it was a bit frightening and surreal while it's happening, because you're like, this is the Vice Presidency of the United States, and I kept waiting for someone to call up and say, "Oh, just kidding."
Right, right. I agree with that. Yes, never mind.
Right, like, oh, my bad. We didn't realize. And that call, like, that call just never came. It just never came. It never came. Next thing you know, the congresswoman is sitting in front of the vice president having a serious conversation about it. And so, you know, I thought it was one of the, you know, most interesting experiences of my life. I was very honored and happy to be a part of it. But for me, it was just further validation for what is a story that has been building, and that is the work that we've done, the leadership that's been produced. Karen, as the founder, is simply some of the best work that the nation has to offer.
What are your hopes for Community Coalition moving forward?
Well, I want to see the organization continue to grow and continue to train the next generation of activists. But maybe the organization can now step into a role, if it actually hasn't already occurred, where leading the social justice organizations in how to have strategic relationships with people who are in power. Because I think we have reached the point as a movement of being able to win and place people in power, but I'm not convinced that we have learned to actually strategically use the power that's actually right at our doorstep, that we didn't have 30 years ago. And so I think, considering that the two EDs are now in office, that's a role that we can play.
And I think that role is very, very important, because you also have lots of progressive electeds that get elected as individuals, or people who are not a part of organizations, but they might be a part of a movement, and they want to know how to interact as well. So I think having the kind of space and the Community Coalition playing a role in convening people from all over the country and doing that. You know, when I think about Community Coalition, I think about the Highlander Institute, where, you know, no one talks about it, but that's where Rosa Parks went and got trained in civil disobedience before she just took the seat on the bus. Because we know, you know, there's a public narrative, but there's really what happens. And the Community Coalition is, I think, strategically the position to have a space or institution that can convene those people. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Community Coalition move towards that. And I'm looking forward to the day a SEIA member takes over the organization as the board chair, as the executive director. That I'm waiting to see.
We're doing pretty good. Director, deputy political director, Glaus, director of art and culture. A number are already in more senior roles, so it's happening. We're closer.
You know, to me, in 1990, it was natural to create an organization that was black-brown, because we wanted to be rooted in community organizing. Well, when you knock on doors, you don't go, "Oh, I only want to talk to the black people." You knock on the door and you want to involve and speak to whoever answers that door. And in 1990, South Los Angeles was becoming more and more Latinos were moving into the area. And so it was a natural to say we want to build an organization that's black and brown. However, it was rooted in earlier struggles in the 60s and the 70s, where we all worked in unity together because it was about power. We understood that one, our struggles were very, very similar, and number two, if we worked together, we were much more powerful. And so the original folks that came together that formed the Community Coalition, we had worked in a multiracial way from the beginning. The other thing is that the early activists brought in a racial analysis. We understood that our struggles were together. We understood that what the root of our problems were was an economic system, a social system that basically was not just and wasn't equitable when it came to our people. And so when we were working with the youth and the elders, we felt it was very important to do the political education so people understood our histories. When you understand your history, you understand where, oh, the oppression, it might have taken different forms, but it's still oppression. And so that was why it was part of the values of the organization, and I'm very proud that it has continued to be that.
We are too. Would you like to add anything, Mark, please?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the one of the things that's always special about the Community Coalition from the beginning, when I came, it was one of the only places organizing Black and brown people together. People either had politics that said you don't do that, or just the logistics of doing it because of language and different sets of needs. You know, African Americans would be seniors and other people would be young families with babies. People just wouldn't want to do the work. It was just too difficult. And so the Community Coalition took care to do that and to build the relationships, but also to build consciousness about racism and not allow, at the time, most of the time of the Community Coalition's existence, the media would try to get people to ignore the problem of race unless it was armed conflict in the streets. Other than that, they didn't want you to talk about it, and the Community Coalition always made a point of talking about it and talking about the importance of multiracial coalitions, actually going out and building them, but maintaining the centrality of the Black struggle against white supremacy. I remember there was a time when we were the only people at the Community Coalition were saying that. And now you turn on the news and they're like, oh, we have to end white supremacy. And it's like, okay, great.
We're with you.
Right, yes, that. Right.
Both of you have been
really
impressed
wonderful.
on us that organizing and movement work and connecting to our community is best done through arts and culture. And you will be proud that even as we have a beacon of hope, a permanent community organization, we wanted to make sure that it was that its exterior walls have a mural that's really representative of the work that we are doing. And so the community put together a mural, and they actually put multiple murals together, and they voted on the one that they wanted to see on the wall. So very democratic process. And this is a replica of the mural, and the mural is dedicated to you. And so each of you will receive one of these. And then Karen, in your in your vetting for VP, there was one of our favorite photos of you that was painted by an artist. So took the photo and created a painting. We enlarged it, and we want you to also have a copy of one of the photo that hangs on our wall in the building that we want to gift you. So these gifts for you are in honor of the 30th anniversary.
That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.